Well, how do you feel about playing a main character in 2 hit sci-fi shows? I've been really lucky to play 2 very interesting women back to back. So I just finished doing the miniseries of Farscape, and Erin was an incredible character to play. Very serious, but very strong, and like a little child who needed help becoming a woman. And that is the one similarity with Vala, playing her on Stargate. She's also childlike and very playful, but I think and they've both had very difficult lives, but Vala enables me to bring out a lot more comedy in my performance than I had the opportunity to do with Erin. But as an actress, it's been very lucky, not only financially as an actor to be working back to back, but also creatively to play such different roles. The experience of working with Ben Browder on Farscape is completely different to the experience I have here at Stargate, because they keep us separated. But they did at the beginning. I think maybe they were worried that some of the fans of the show would think we'd come to take over and change the style of the program, maybe. And also, Ben and I were there when the show was started from the very beginning, so we had a bigger input in the shape and the tone of the program, and we all grew together like a family on Farscape. And Ben and I have arrived late to this family, but they have been incredibly welcoming. And I'm always very lucky when Ben's on set, because I know that I have someone I can count on to give me an honest opinion about my work. And since I consider him to be part of my family, it's always nice to have a nice brother around. 200 is probably one of the funniest episodes. Have you seen it? I think the 200th episode is very funny, because I haven't watched all of the episodes that have come. Some of the jokes I didn't understand, and they needed to be explained to me. But I was even surprised that I was included in it as much as I was, because I knew they wanted to really make this episode, especially for all the fans. And I hope they've enjoyed it. I haven't heard what the response has been to it airing in America, as it did on Friday night for the first time. But we certainly had some very funny moments filming it, and I was just impressed by the amount of enthusiasm and hard work from everybody in the crew that went into it. So there was always a great atmosphere when we were shooting it. What did you enjoy the most about performing on that episode? I kind of answered that, but I did. It was the first time I'd worked with Martin Wood, so that was an enjoyable experience. He's very organized, and he's very respectful of actors. The way he communicated with us, I was grateful for the way that he always included us in the process, and if we had ideas, he was very open about them. What was the most challenging scene you had to do during your time on Stargate? When we did the episode where Vala gets burnt by the Prior, it was incredibly hot, and I was sitting in the center of that circle, and as the rings got closer and closer, we knew that they weren't going to come into the 2 closest rings. And I was actually pregnant for some of that sequence, because we shot some of it before the break, and then I found out I was pregnant, and then after the break I came back, and I was a little bit more nervous about being there, and it was very smoky. They were using different fire that day, and I didn't know what to say, and I went up to Michael Shanks and I said, I think I have to tell you something, and I think I might have to tell the director. Things had changed a little bit, and it was just a bit more intense. And Dan Shea, our stunt supervisor, caught on fire trying to get me out of there, and I think I said something that wasn't very polite. I was a little shocked that he was on fire, and I just remembered the heat. I think that was sort of quite a challenging sequence, but fun. I mean, I like doing that sort of stuff. It's a nice adrenaline rush. The 200th episode was very grueling for me. I had a 2-month-old baby who was a very fussy baby, didn't sleep much, being up all night with my baby, and then in every scene, every setup, every day at work was probably the greatest challenge I've had in terms of, trying to keep energy up when I had none in reserve. One day on set, I actually couldn't remember my line, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not get it out of my mouth. And I was doing a sequence with Willie Garson, and he was very supportive and very sweet, and I tried very hard, but I just could not recall the line. And everyone was standing on set very... I think they felt sorry for me, because it's very awkward for an actor when they're going through that. It's quite painful to watch, and it was very painful and embarrassing for me. And I went to Robert Cooper and I said, I had a terrible day today on set, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't remember my line. And he was very sweet, but so they didn't fire me, but that was very challenging that day. Probably the most embarrassing day. Do you carry over any character traits from Farscape? I think, as I said, I think that Aaron and Vala both, the similarity in them is that they're both childlike, and that they have a lot of growing up to do when we first meet them. How they cope with their past and how they interact with new people is very different. Your character's become an instant hit with fans on the show. Oh, really? That's nice. What aspects of the character do you think appeals to the audience? I think that Vala's coping mechanism of keeping things light and always cracking jokes and teasing people and always seeing the funny side in things and always seeing opportunities, and I think that she's amusing to watch, or I hope she is. She's annoying, yeah. I think that she is very annoying, and I think it's funny and interesting to see what she brings out in Daniel, who's obviously a very popular character on the show, and I think it's nice to see a new side of Daniel. But I also think that she can be quite charming when she wants to be, and quite clever. And because she's a survivor and she's had a very tough life, I think it's always interesting to see what she's going to do next in order to scrape through the predicament. Chemistry between Vala and Daniel, was it something planned since the beginning? Nothing was planned. The episode Prometheus Unbound was a playful bottle episode, as they say. It was supposed to be inexpensive, easy to shoot, character-oriented. So I think from the beginning it was expected that there would be a little bit of chemistry between Daniel and the character of Vala. They had another actress in mind who wasn't available. Then they approached me, and I saw the opportunity for comedy, and that's what really attracted me to it. So I think it was a combination of what was on the page, because Damien Kindler had written a very funny episode and an interesting character, and the alchemy of me, Michael, and Andy Nikita working together, wanting to really bring out as much humor as we could. And when I first met Michael, I went up to him. I actually thought that he'd seen me and chosen to ignore me so that he could be a big star and be all, aloof. I saw him walking down the hall, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be a really tough experience. He's kind of ignoring me. And when he realized that I was standing on set waiting to meet him, he came up and he was very sweet, and he shook my hand, and I said to him, we had to go and do a stunt rehearsal for the funny fight scene that we had. And I said to him, because I can appreciate what it's like as a regular actor on a show, each new guest actor that comes into play with you presents an opportunity for you to show a new side of your character. So I said to him, what can I do to help you? Is there anything that you want to expose of your character in this episode? Is there something new that you want to do or show about Daniel? Is there something I can do to help, facilitate that? And there was a sort of moment of silence where Michael looked at me and said, gosh, I don't know, thank you, I'll think about it. And he said that, he wanted to make the fight as funny as he could. And one of the producers on set was saying, no, let's make sure that Michael looks very macho. It's important that Daniel looks macho. And Michael said, no, that's not what Daniel is. Daniel's not a soldier. He's not military, and it should be funny. Let's make it funny. So I think that was the beginning of the real chemistry between Daniel and Vala, was that decision from everybody to protect the humour. Oh, good. Thank you. I think that you can get a certain magic on set when it's on second unit, or when it's a smaller unit and there's no I mean, I personally love doing the big explosions and the big stunts. I think it's fun to be energetic and bring out the physical side of any character that I'm playing. But there's also a huge opportunity when the episodes are quiet to do some nice character work and some playful acting without the distraction and the loss of time due to external forces like setting up stunts and having a large number of cast that all need to be filmed. It was an interesting opportunity, I think, and partly why the episode worked. And I'd also like to say that every time we see that Prometheus is on television, my husband and I will watch it, and every time we're impressed by Michael and how good he is in the episode. I can take or leave my own performance, but I think he's a terrific actor and an excellent comedic performer. His timing, when you watch that episode, it is absolutely immaculate. He's very, very clever. Would you be interested in exploring Vala's past, especially in playing Katesh on a flashback episode? Definitely. I think that would have been an excellent episode. And we kind of saw a little bit of that when we... I never remembered the names of the episodes, but when she goes to the planet where she was Katesh. The powers that be? I think it is. I think the Tizer bind is the one where she has to go and get the coil back and the necklace back and the... Yeah. I think. Okay. So, I mean, we get introduced to... We get an inkling of what it was like, when she was the host to the Gold, Katesh, and there were some amusing scenes. But I definitely think that would be a very interesting episode. How would you like the relationship between Vala and Adria to evolve in the future? Well, obviously we've just had the news about season 10 being at this stage, the last season for Stargate SG-1. That's not to say that the franchise won't continue and that these characters won't continue on in some form. I know they're discussing the possibility of movies, so it would be very interesting to see what would happen between Vala and Adria if there was a movie. And I think it's funny when I talk about Toman and Vala as parents discussing their very naughty child. She's not only naughty, she's become very evil and very powerful. So I'd be very interested to see how that would play out. How aware were you of Stargate before joining the show in the 8th season? Stargate's actually very popular in Australia, which is where I was born, and it's in syndication all over the world. I think you'd have to live underground and not have come up for about 20 years to not know, or 10 years I should say, to not have heard of Stargate. I think it's on everybody's radar, even if it's just on the periphery. And for me, Stargate, in Australia it was on prime time on a free-to-air network, so it was very popular there. So I definitely knew about it, and I'd seen the movie as well. Do you have any funny stories that you'd like to share about the shooting of Stargate? Well, if you know anything about Christopher Judge, there's a million funny stories every single day. But, everyone, I mean, I've had a very good belly laugh with Amanda every day when she's on set, Michael, Ben, everyone. There are so many funny stories that I'll have to probably think about that while I'm answering the other questions and see if I can think of any particular examples.